Today is the 23rd, and we are having the 2019 annual meeting, just for reference sake, with the what we're going to record, so that people who aren't here can watch it later, because this is going to be fascinating stuff, of course. Welcome everybody. I think we'll have several people kind of talk about a lot of what's going on in the last year, what's going to be happening next year. My quick summary, honestly, is I think we had a heck of a year in 2018-19 from the perspective of, financially, competition, just everything went really, really well, and let's keep doing it, right? First things first, Wayne is going to talk just briefly about election for the board seats that are up. Okay.
All right, taking ballots here. If you haven't already voted already, please come see me and do your ballot. This year we have 3 positions open again for voting. Daryl Horseman's up, Debbie Aubrey, and Wes Seeger. So if you haven't got your ballots in already, please come see me, and we'll get counting the ballots here and see who our picker will be again next year. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no clapping for Wayne.
Ever.
Yes.
All right.
Please help count.
Yay, Laura. Oh, I'm sorry.
2 volunteers help count.
Oh.
Can I use my fingers and toes?
What's that?
Can I use my fingers and toes?
And any other extremities you want to use?
Oh, let's not get crazy. It'd be a short count.
Louis will help you with one. We need one more head trap. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next up, something that everybody's always very interested in is how's the club doing from a financial perspective. So Amy, who is our budget committee chairperson, is going to talk to us about that a little bit.
Wait a minute, that sounds exciting. All right, on behalf of Wayne Garland and the Budget Committee, let's keep this really brief and really high level. I'm not going to bore you with numbers and all that. So, like Jeff said, we're doing great. It's been a great year. We're $34,000 ahead of budget right now, and that's through May 31st. So, good job, everyone. The main priority continues to be our debt repayment. As most of you probably know, the club raised, I think it was somewhere around $400,000 to start. I don't have the number, but to get this thing going. And now, as of right now, we are down to $160,000 of debt, and that is all non-interest bearing now. We just paid off our last interest-bearing note last month, so saving the club money on interest every month. So, we've really been focused on it, and it's thanks to all you guys for being so conscious of the budget this year. People are really starting to kind of take that seriously, and we sound like we're beating a dead horse sometimes on budget, but it's really paying off. So we've got $160K left, and that's going to continue to be our priority until that's paid off. So that was, I think there's 8 people. So those people have left the club money, and they're not getting any interest on it. So I think our priority needs to be to pay them back, because they've done this for the club. So that's what we're going to do there. Things that have happened this year financially, we've given back the warehouse space over there. I don't know if all you guys know that. So that's saving us a ton of money on rent every month. We went from 16 to 9, 16,000 a month to 9,000 a month for rent. So that's great. We got a grant for the duck sock and the sound panels this year. It was about $6,000 or $7,000. So that was mostly Wayne Garland and Tracy Harmon. They were really proud of that. So good job to them on that. And Karen Cole is now taking over, looking at some of the grant stuff. So she may be talking to some of you guys about projects that we want to do. And building committee, she's probably been bugging you about stuff. So it's free money. It's a little bit of work, but it's worth going after. What else? The annual raffle did not sell out this year. It was closed, but didn't quite sell out. But we still made some money. We made about $6,000 or $7,000 for the club, so that was good. I think we're going to probably take a year or two off of that. We'll have burnt out with going around asking for money, and it was really hard this year. Greg has been doing a great job on that, and it's a lot of work for him, so. I think we're probably gonna take a year or two off on that, and then maybe revive it in a couple of years and see if we can renew some interest in it, but it was a lot of work this year, so. What else? The bar revenues are down a little bit, but we think that's mostly due to the Olympic traffic not being here like it was last year. And the only other thing I have to say about the bars, please pay your bar tabs. We're trying to get a new system in place, possibly by the fall, to help in that. And one of the, I don't know where Sarah is, but one of the things this new system will do will help us bar revenue by event, so we can put these cutoff dates better, so we can see, you know, how much bar revenue we had during this event, during this. So we're trying to get that stuff working a little more smoothly, but if you guys could all just be aware of paying your tabs and that kind of stuff, it's kind of a privilege to be able to have tabs. A lot of clubs don't even like to do that, so our last resort would just be to say, you know, no more tabs, but I don't want to go there yet. It's convenient, so let's do what we can to kind of make that work. And the last thing I wanted to quickly mention is the advertising in the ice. You see the banners over there, sponsorships, the in-ice advertising and the scoreboard stuff. David and I talked about that yesterday, and we've got a plan to kind of go after some of that again, because that's kind of one of the things that's fallen by the wayside. So if you guys, small businesses, anybody wants to advertise, if you have friends that have small businesses and want to advertise, let me know. David's going to be getting some materials together, so we'll have a flyer that we can hand out as well. And then we'll get a plan together for going after some of the local businesses and that kind of stuff. So, but if anyone has any questions for now, just ask me and we'll figure out where to go with that. So, the last thing I want to end with is books are always open. If anybody has any questions on any of the finances of the club, ask me or Wayne Garman, or email treasurer@coyotescurling.com. We're more than willing to share any information that you guys want to know about the financial stuff in the club. Okay?
Anyone with any, I know the financial stuff of the club ends up being a topic around here a lot. Anybody have any questions or things that we want to address that they're curious about?
Typically, we talk about where we stand for operating capital moving forward. Do we have any take on where that is? Ahead or behind where we had?
We always have a cushion. We have kind of a reserve that we've said we're not gonna go below 150,000. And that's in case something catastrophic happens and the plant goes down or something. It's not as big a deal this time of year, because we're not gonna really be getting revenues for the next couple months, but if that were to happen in September, October, we would lose a ton of money. So we always have that cushion there, 150,000, and then anything over that, we use as our first priority to pay off the debt. So that's kind of where we stand. So we always have about 150 to 200,000, depending on the time of year.
And barring any kind of other unforeseen expense over the next couple months, we should have some additional extra money to pay off some of that non-interest debt here in the fall. So not sure exactly how much that'll be yet, but at least we'll be starting to work on that now.
And we have about 5 years left to pay that off. It was a 10-year deal. So.
And then, sorry, one final question. Is the club managing the new women's competitive grant, or is that something that is being managed privately by the grantor?
The Donna Perky,
I'm not sure what it's called.
if that's what you're referring to, then.
It was one that was proposed by the Women's Committee, so it's probably run with them in some way. Like, so there was a donation of money for, and Tracy, you might be able to speak this a little bit, that competitive grant. Is that being run by the club, or is that an outside?
No, it'll be under the club umbrella. So that's, we're trying to just make sure that we get all the legal part of that set up so that we don't mess up anything about the 501c3 status of the club. Yeah.
Yes, just kind of a brief overview on that. Hal Perkey has designated some funds that he would like to have the club help administer for competitive women's curling in terms of helping to defray some of their costs when they travel and event fees and things like that. Kind of working through exactly what that means and how to, like Tracy was saying, how to administer that properly so that we don't screw up anything else in terms of our nonprofit status, etc., and how that would be funded and how much per year, and make sure it doesn't run afoul of our current bylaws, and if we need to make some changes there, like accommodate that, etc. But hopefully here in the next few months, that should be pretty well in place, and then we'll be able to kind of announce the criteria and the committee that would choose and all that kind of stuff.
And it's also possible, because the fund, the way it will be ultimately set up, will, or at least from Hal's input, the option sits there for it to, the money to, in any given year, go to like funding a women's camp or defraying cost for women who attend a women's camp, which might be mainly women playing competitively, or it might be just the general women of the club, some of whom don't wish to play competitively, versus other years that it might all go towards defraying cost of the women's teams that are traveling competitively. But it's specifically earmarked to try to improve the competitive level of the women in the club.
And obviously that is in Donna's name. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not sure if there's the perfect business model for a curling club as far as revenue goes. But I'm curious, what are the percentages as far as revenue streams go? Like what percentage comes from, membership in leagues, and bond spiels, and bar, and
I have the top three.
everything else? Yeah, what?
Here we go.
Maybe you already said that, I missed it, so.
Yeah, it's the Letterman top five.
Leagues is right now 32% of our revenue. Events is another 21%, and the bar and the corporate learn to curls are pretty close at 13 and 11%. And then there's various other minor things. So.
But that's close to 80 right there.
That's
Yeah,
79.
right, yeah. So I mean, is that pretty typical for a curling club? I have no idea. I mean, is that where we want to be?
I think if we had our perfect scenario, there'd be more league play, so that, if we have 8 teams every night, 7 days a week, maybe even second draws here and there, that stable revenue that comes in every month is a lot easier to manage than, gee, let's hope that we get a whole bunch of learner girls this month, or gee, let's hope we, get that this next bond deal sells out. There's other variables in that, whereas that league play is sort of like a weekly or monthly payment that we just sort of get all the time. So I think that would be the best, but I think we also knew, at least within the last couple of years, look, we are in a atypical curling environment here. So maybe gaining large numbers of members and having lots of league play isn't, although it's our focus in general, it may not be what we can only focus on. Because there are other clubs, I can give you an example with Denver. Denver has 500 members, they have a 3,000 person waiting list. They have 2 events a year basically, because they don't care about running events. So my guess is, I bet 75–80% of their revenue comes from leagues. They have 2 draws every night, and 3 on weekends. So different, configuration of membership with a different, sort of, revenue streams, which is great, good for them, right? That's what, they figured out what they can do well. So I think what we do well is we do lots of learner curls, and we do lots of events, and those are profitable, and so we keep doing them. It helps to supplement league play, quite honestly, compared to maybe what ideal would be, but I think we're just trying to deal with the logistics that we have best we can.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Any other financial questions? Okay, thank you, Amy. Next, just talk a little bit about kind of what we're going to be doing around here over the summer while the ice is out, and we always have some projects kind of going on. Tom Duperich, building chair.
Sean is here, but he did text me what he's gonna do, because obviously, the reason we're here is that area over there. July 14th, ice is off, or the plant is off. The 15th through the 20th of July, our restoration HQ crew are gonna be in here to take not take the ice out, they're gonna be taking the water out. While the water and the ice are gone, there's going to be a whole bunch of repairs done to the ends. There's been some damage done over the years to where the return lines for the pipes are going, so there's going to be digging out of sand, playing in the sand, and doing a whole bunch of work on there. August 31st, mark down in your calendars, put the sand back in. It's really enjoyable to do, I love it.
No liar.
There will still be beer in the fridge, come on now.
How
September
does the beer
1st,
smell?
the plant goes back on. September 7th, I'm gonna be painting back to white. September 15th, back to curling. Yeah. Look for emails for people to come to help all during the summer. Don't take any time off, just because we're closed, we're still doing lots of stuff. Speaking of which, Jason and possibly Wayne or possibly some other people will be rebuilding the walkways. You've noticed they've been a little bouncy.
It's kind of
I was
fun.
gonna say,
Yeah.
what's that?
It's kind of fun.
It is fun. I could lose some weight, but I'm not helping it. But anyway, so Jason and Wayne and probably myself and others will be out there repairing the walkways. Good news, bad news. We're getting a lot of banners. That's a good news. Bad news is we've got to find a better way of hanging them. So if anybody has any suggestions, please feel free to reach out to me. We have to be cognizant of airflow, so they can't be going this way and that way and everywhere. Close to the wall is good. That's probably our best wall for showcasing them. Any suggestions you have ideas on, let me know. I am looking for myself for the cold room, a countdown clock. We talked about this previously. It's just a clock probably on the side. Whenever you go out there, you can start it, 2 hours, counts down, just so you can keep your pace of your game going. Possibly during the music for events also.
Miraculous.
Some teams are a little slow. On this side of the glass, on this side of the glass,
Looking over at us.
on this side of the glass, my primary objective this summer is to get rid of this.
Woo!
All tile, including the bathrooms. There's just under 1,200 square feet. Get it all gone, take it down to concrete, then we'll figure out what to do with it later. I've had 2 companies come out. One was very expensive. They are the dustless crew. They can also take up the epoxy paints in the kitchen and the bathrooms. Another company I got a quote from, he would just take down the tile. He's not going to touch the epoxy, and we would have to do some work after he's done, but we'll go through there. And I have a possible third guy. I've got to meet down here and get another quote from him.
If you want more tile after that, I know a place.
Okay.
I don't know.
Some of you have probably had some disparaging remarks about our cleaning crew. I've got 2 quotes from 2 different companies. We're going to be changing cleaning crews. Moving to 2 times a week versus once every Wednesday or once whenever the guy gets up off the couch. I'm sure.
Almost got it, probably a good idea.
Thermostats. We're on a thermostat changing expedition. If anybody has experience with either Nest or Ecobee, Nest is a Google product, Ecobee is Amazon. Clash of the Titans, so if you're in the Google camp or Amazon camp, let me know. I really don't care. But it would be nice to have a thermostat that you can get to for Wi-Fi, check on it, make sure, set it down, blah, 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 whatever you need. Becky, I've been working on, we put the key to the door on the door itself. At some point in time, for people who will be needing to come in on a regular, frequent basis, you will be getting your own access code. Right now, we have a generic one that everybody can use. That will be gone sometime in the near future, so if you do need access to the building, you'll have your own code.
Perfect.
This includes the cleaning crew or whatever, so we know people are here or not. Sorry, I'm rambling here now. I would like to thank everybody who picks up, cleans up, takes out garbage, etc. Nobody here gets paid.
You're awesome.
Everybody but you.
We are a club of volunteers. You know, we cannot treat this like a rental organization. We just don't come here, curl, drink a beer or two, and then leave. This is all, we have to think of all of this as our house. I'm late to the game in curling. A lot of people did a lot of more work before I was here, but thank you for that. But let's all be respectful that this is all of our house, right? Clean up, even if it's not yours, just throw it away, do whatever, so I appreciate that. And lastly, well not lastly, I got two more things.
I'm holding you to that.
26 subparts.
One of them is we obviously lost the space next door, so we are space constrained. So we've been thinking about how to reconfigure the warm room side to make it better. For lack of a better word, it's not that it's not great already, but it's just better. So as an example, not using these two rooms over here, knock the wall down between, make that the women's locker room. The current conference room, which is now a storage, make that the men's locker room. And then all of the stuff that's over there, we'd have to find storage for, etc. So if anybody has any ideas, and just by the way, I've been working with Sean Frankie, who some of you probably know who he is. We have been going back and forth about, I gave him listen, gut this whole building on this side of the glass, what would you see the perfect layout to be? Okay. There's probably going to be some things that will upset some people, like a gender-neutral changing room, because we're trying to increase locker rooms, changing spaces. I mean, when we have a bond spiel, you know how it is between draws. A locker room can be very crowded. We don't have a space. We can't have, like when the wrench is here, you possibly could have 64 guys trying to change, the guys coming off the ice versus the guys going onto the ice. So just having a large men's room may not be feasible. Or when we have a women's event here, we have a bunch of ladies here, having a large women's locker room is not feasible. So maybe if we have a gender neutral room, like up in Duluth, first time I ever saw one, I thought it was great. So, not that we would have individual rooms, but again, just for that. So, if anybody has any ideas, I do have some copies of what the floor plan is. You can draw on it, give it back to me, and I can discuss with you what I've been thinking of. And lastly, thanks to everybody on the building committee, Carl Nassau, the previous guy. I don't know how I got worked into this. Kelly, she keeps me honest, appreciate it, keep continuing to do it. Tom Stokes, he does the brooms, refinishes them, keeps them clean, keeps them up and running. Becky and Daryl for the IT room, work they do, YouTube, monitors, cameras, and everything else. And that's it for me. So, anybody have any questions?
Do we have a quote on redoing the behind the glass?
Yeah, because that's what we're doing.
The floor plan that you discussed?
No.
We're just in the information gathering
Yeah,
stage.
so again, this is a very long range thing. I mean, the only thing we have quotes for is tile removal. As far as what we would do considering, we've talked about moving, getting rid of the office here, moving it over there or something like that, but the bar here, there may not be a immediate gutting the whole building, the warm room. We may go in phases.
So is it like a 3-year, 5-year plan type
Yes.
thing?
Who knows?
Just curious.
Yep. And if anybody has any suggestions, again, the space is limited. One thing I would like to do is the wall between, like where our locker rooms right now, there's a lot of vertical space there. I'd love to see us use that as storage up high, get stuff up. I think we could easily put some nifty shelves in there and put storage up, etc. So.
Got a question, Patrick.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, when we do the backboards here, we incorporate a more wheelchair-friendly foldable ramp.
I
That
know
way we
we've
can
talked
get
about
rid
it in
of
the past, so yeah, we could always consider it, yep. If you have any ideas, these two guys will cover your best. Anything else? And if you wanna join the building committee, take my place, it's open.
And so, I'm gonna jump a spot here, cause, Duke brought up something that we were gonna have a little talk about, so Tracy and Kelly were gonna talk a little bit about, hey, maybe, trying to keep the place a little cleaner and et cetera, cause it's not always like that. So maybe you guys could talk now and then we'll move around from there.
Go ahead, Tiger. Yeah.
I'm just gonna let you guys know, I called the city to clarify some recycling guidelines because of the stuff that ends up in our recycling. Thank you for, the stuff that ends up in our recycling bin, thank you for not putting bags in there anymore because 10 people just throw it all out. It's considered waste if there's plastic bags of any kind. So plastic bags are only recycled from the grocery stores or Walmart. Anything under 2 inches is not recyclable because it falls through the rails when they're sorting. So all those tickets, like for Wayne's Draw, please don't put those in there. Because they get stuck in there. So yeah, anything under 2 inches. Of course, trying to empty your beers, I know that's a struggle for most. But if you could just empty them or give them to somebody who will before you put them in the blue bags, that would be great. Yeah, drink them.
Drink it or dump it down the sink, do something.
And then have another, and then when you get done with that one, go that direction to pour out any that you don't want and put it in that blue recycle can.
Sure.
But yeah, we really appreciate, when people pick things up. I know that sometimes people get in a hurry or whatever, and, and there's a lot of stuff that's left around that isn't yours because you picked up your stuff. But if people could just be really conscientious, because we are all volunteers picking it up, and a lot of the stuff ends up being around on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and social league people end up picking it up, which, they're part of the league too, but it was left by earlier in the week, because I'm here a lot of nights, and so I sort of watch what's left, and I wait to see how long it will be picked up. And it can be over a week, it can be 10 days before I finally give up and go, well, I guess I'll pick that up. Probably my other pet peeve, and you'll hear me rave about it, is please don't put anything on the tables that you wouldn't put on your table at home. There are really interesting things end up on the tables, namely people's shoes. And I don't know, I don't really want to eat where your shoes were. I don't know where your shoes were, but probably they were on your feet when you went to the restroom. And I'm a doctor, and those kind of thoughts just really turn my stomach. Please not put your shoes on the table. That would be wonderful. They can go on the floor. That's great. The other thing that we are trying to do on the building committee, because I know a lot of the committees end up being things where you go to meetings, you talk about stuff, and there's a lot of people who just really don't want to be on a committee where you're going and you're talking about stuff. But you, at the same time, would not mind doing stuff. And there's a lot of stuff to do around here. And one of the things we're doing on the building committee is we're asking different building committee members to take different areas of the club. So to take the ice house area and that be sort of their area that they make sure stays clean and to standards, like just getting the carpeting, or, well, we may change the surface out there too, but just making sure the backboards are clean. People, Kelly and I are kind of interested in, we really like to keep the refrigerators clean and all the stuff in the kitchen clean, but if there's somebody else who really likes to throw stuff out that's expired, you're welcome to join us. We have plenty of room there to help, just keep that clean. But if you're interested in, just being on a committee where you're actually just doing something, then you can contact Kelly or I or Hot Rocks Tom Newbridge Magnus, and he will also help you to touch with somebody who can help with that. As just another plea, this has nothing to do with our cleaning stuff in the building committee, but leagues and stuff. The league website has recently undergone like an update, a security update that they did. So there's new membership page to fill out. It's got a couple of glitches on it right now, but if you want to go ahead and re-up your membership, you're welcome to do that. Leagues will be opening up soon. And then just on another aside, the events pages are all open up. So if you get onto the website, there's all kinds of ways that you can spend your money now, so that when those times are that you're not paying for leagues through the summer, but you look at it and you go, oh, so that means I have an extra $200. You can go ahead and sign up for.
You're talking about fall leagues, right?
Yeah, fall leagues. Fall leagues, and then pretty much, Sarah, is that right? All of the events are open except for next year's
Except,
Hotter Than Hell.
yeah, so as soon as Hotter Than Hell starts this year, it'll open up next year.
Yes.
So like, Desert Ice and everything are already open.
Yeah, so spend your money now. Thank you very much.
Karen Cole has been now taking over sort of our grant writing, kind of arm of the club. We haven't explored that a whole lot. We've gotten a few grants here and there, just sort of catch can, and done well with it. But she's taking a little more organized effort with it and getting some committee members together, including Cayman and Louisa and Wayne Garman and et cetera, and are starting to work on several projects. She wrote me a brief note that she couldn't be here, but the Arizona Sports and Tourism Authority next week will be getting our grant application for some of the flooring stuff, and to also perhaps buy some ice making supplies, and see if we can get some money from them for that. Then, like I said, there's a bunch of people she wanted to thank, but bottom line is, she's starting to work on that, trying to get as many of these applications going early, figure out, because all of them have a lot of, restrictions and timelines and letters they have to get of support from the board and all these different things, and unfortunately in the past, we've missed some of the deadlines on occasion. So hopefully we're going to have a little more organized system for getting ahead of that, and apply to as many things as we can. It's not that we're going to get all of them, but you apply to 10, maybe you get 1 or 2, and that alone would be pretty good. Next, so we're talking about our event schedule for next year. Sarah. One thing before she starts. Let's see, Louis and Travis, if you could help Mr. Wayne. Thank you.
Alright, so the 2019-2020 events calendar is completely set in stone. Thank you for the 10,000 people that came together and helped work on the schedule and coordinate events, leagues, men's, women's, President's Cup, wheelchair, everything kind of. It's a lot of moving parts, but we really feel like to get off on a positive foot and be successful for next year, having our date set, starting early, getting people signed up, locked in, can really help us continue to grow, especially in our events. So registration is open for everything, except for Hotter Than Hell over a year from now. Our goal is at the event, registration for the following year is going to be open. So while people are here, having fun, had a few drinks, they will swipe their credit card and sign up for next year. Thank you. That's the goal. Come on back. We have, I think, a lot of positive momentum this year. We've made some changes. We're continuing to make some changes. So, Fall Fiesta is keeping it tequila theme. We've got the tasting. We've got a taco truck booked for the banquet. So we're trying to kind of amp things up a little bit. You're gonna see playing a little bit with incentives, with pricing, but we're hoping that people will see that they're getting kind of increased value and bang for your buck. So we've got a couple of things moving there. The spring training, new prizes seem to be a hit this year. So if that's gonna keep going, we have the demo ring, and I believe the rings arrived for the winners already, so hopefully people are excited to show those off. And then Desert Ice, after many years of dedicated service, we're gonna be transitioning the chairs for that event to some newbies and try to refocus on Arizona and really keep that momentum as our flagship Arizona Curling in the Desert event, and keep that momentum going and really showcase what we have to offer, kind of focusing on local beers, local spirits, local food, and really try to make it an event showcasing Arizona. And then kind of Golden Wrench, I think, is already seeing some sign-ups and some success there, especially with their sponsorships that we had last year. So those are the big changes. The kind of some of our spooky administrative changes with the events, because we've transitioned all of our events to a 3-day format for our Bonspiels, there's no longer a formal late draw request on the registration page. So if someone really needs a late draw request, they're gonna have to contact the Bonspiel chair directly, and it may lead to some inconvenient draw scheduling. You know, you have to have some back-to-backs or late nights or things like that, but it was becoming extremely cumbersome for our draw masters, getting a disproportionate amount of late draw requests because it was easy to check a box. So we're gonna make it, people have to be a little proactive if they need that late draw. And I think that's the highlights. Thanks.
Any event questions? Yes, sir.
Apparel. How come none of our skills have apparel?
Because we didn't put it into our budget. Yeah, I don't have the budget for it, that's why Enterprise doesn't do it.
The reason why I'm bringing that up is that, you know, you have t-shirts for this event and that event and this event. And I know that they cost money, when you contract out. The newer ways that things have been done on apparel is heat press with all the Pasasolines and stuff like that. I have a heat press and I'm willing to give it up to make more money for the club. That way we can control it. We don't have to ask, you know, party A how much shirts are. Oh, well, then the artwork is going to cost this much, and so on and so forth. I think that our club, we have a resale license, we have a shop. There's a company here in Arizona that does the printing, and all it does is show up on a piece of paper, and we print it down on the garment, and we sell it for our profit, not paying them to do it, vice versa. So I do have one, and it's got an 18-inch heat press with a hat attachment. Just food for thought.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other events, concerns, questions, etc.? Okay.
Thank you to Karen Tate for all these fun years.
All right, so next, Lindsay is going to talk a little bit about the club software. As you know, as much as I'd like to say that we all use that software a lot and effectively, the reality is we don't. And so we thought, you know, have a little tutorial about that a bit and talk about that would be helpful. If for no other reason, at least our part-time colleagues and fellow curlers might get something out of this they can watch later. So, Lindsay, please.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so just going to draw your attention to the screen here, and you know, just want to point out in case you don't know that the system we use as Curling Club Manager comes from a company in Halifax, Nova Scotia. We pay an annual fee for use, unlimited number of members, and yeah, we just renewed it. It's $500 a year Canadian, so like what, $32.50 USD. Anyway, so it's really a bargain. It's not everything we want it to be, right? But it's about as good as you're going to get in that price range, right? Out there. So just to help out people, I know that a lot of people here use the system, use it well. right? But I could go on and look and see, so, well, here's someone hasn't logged in since 2018, and I know they've even played in leagues, so they're not bothering to register for the event. Somebody else is saying, oh, he's on my team, and they're paying outside of that, so it's hard for us to keep track of things. So just gonna roll through just quick things here for those who don't know, right? Some tips and tricks on here. Of course, the direct link to that website is https://cccmember.com, right? And it's all secured now. And your login, everybody here has a login ID. And when we set this up originally, we populated the database with people that we had from spreadsheets. And for their login ID, we just used their email address as their login ID. You don't have to, but you know, if you use your email address, it isn't one other thing you have to remember. What did I use for login ID, right, on this system, right? So login ID and password. And if you haven't been in the system for a long while, you've forgotten your password, of course there is password reset capabilities, right? If you've forgotten just your password here, then you can come to here and say, hey, I lost my password. Right? You put in your login ID and your email address, and the system sends you a temporary password, right? Which you can then change, right? As soon as you do that, to say it updates the password, right, on the system, right? If you forgot your login ID, you can say I forgot login and just provide your email address, and then we'll send you an email and say, oh yeah, this was your login ID. Right? And so this kind of looks what you get for an email. It'll give you this rather cryptic temporary password, right? Which will be your password until you change it, right? The next time, so you go and log in using that temporary password, right? And then bing, you're in. When you first come in, it'll provide you with a couple of things. One is events that are open for registration, current events going on, right? So we'll list there, and then it will show you your games. Events and games quite different in the system. Events for registration, whatever events, even leagues are considered events for registration purposes. And then once you have been added to a team and scheduled for the team, right, in a league, you'll see your next upcoming games in all of the leagues, right, that you are logged in, that you're part of. Okay? So the quick list here, there's a little menu here, some member menu, and on the top here is my information right in there. Would like people to go and update their information to make sure it's current, right, in there. We do need your name, right, and you know, other information. You'll see there is a capability there to put a profile image. You don't have to do this, but we would encourage you to do this, and I'll show you how to do this here in a moment. It's useful for someone saying, well, you know, new people coming in the club, and as we grow as a club, trying to look and say and match names to faces is going to help us, right? Okay. There's also additional information here, your address. A good mailing address would be useful for us if we have to do a mail out, send you, you know, your birthday card or anything. And if you want to change all of that, you'll see there's a little edit button to update your profile, right? And so you'll see a little, I put a little bit of information here about those little symbols right beside each field. There are some things that are required. You may actually go in and find, you edit, and then you go to save, and it says, no, you didn't fill out one of the required fields. You've never filled it out. So the little star indicates the field is required, right? The little looks like an eyeball, right? This field is visible on the profile, right? Show you that when someone's looking, right, they're gonna, just any member, not the administrator, any member, they're gonna be able to see that, right? But if it's the eyeball with the slash through it, right, then it's not visible, it's not shown to other members, right, except for people with administrative rights on here. So you can update any of this information. Here's where you would go and change your password, right? Other things, say your actual mailing address, not just email on there. And you know, you should put one telephone number, right, for contact purposes in here. And kind of lastly here, a lot of people haven't done this. It would be useful to have some emergency info, right? Here, in case, God forbid, there's something happens here at the club, and we just don't know how to get hold of your significant other when it comes to emergencies.
What if the only people we love are here at the club?
Yeah, but they may not be curling that night.
And they may not love you back. More important.
Right? Oh, and to upload the image, you just click on that, say, hey, I want to upload an image. Then you just, if you have some other pictures you've taken up, just a facial picture is all we would like here. We don't want you out, a picture of you out there curling, right? Just a headshot, right? If you were, go and choose the file and click upload, and we'll put it in there, right? Okay. Next thing here is the sparing availability. Every time we set up a new league, so if you said in the fall that you're available to sub on Tuesday nights, and then fall goes through and the new league starts for the next season, something like that, you don't get automatically added to that. You were just added to that one league, right? So when the new leagues are established, right? Not to registration, when the teams are formed and the league schedule like that, then you need to go and add yourself right to that if you want to be open for spare. And I encourage people to use this because this makes it easier for other members, right, to get a hold of a sub, especially when it gets down to crunch time, day before or even the day of, right, the league play. I noticed that some people have been doing things like using Facebook to say, hey, I need a sub, which is all fine, but you're broadcasting a whole bunch of people instead of just that subset of people who are keenly interested, right, in subbing for that league.
I mean, I guess I would advocate for both.
Oh yeah, I mean you can do both. I think that this is more pointed, right, for that. So yeah, absolutely do both, right? Because someone may have not added but still be available, right? And when you put yourself in available, and you can say any position or you can say a preferred position. So if somebody's looking for a lead and you say, hey, I want to play skip, it could be because you don't like to sweep or can't sweep or something like that. And so they don't have to check you out and we'll get it, right? And there is there also volunteer availability separate from that. We talked about earlier about volunteers. If you want to let the committees know that you'd be willing to volunteer into that committee, right, as either a committee member or a worker, please go in and add yourself there, right? When you do register for an event and you don't pay right away, right, the system knows that, or if you do pay right, the system knows that. If you're not registered for any events upcoming, right, you're not going to see anything, but if you are, right, you come and take a look at my event registrations. You can see the ones that you are registered for, ones you have paid, one you've not paid, and you can then, let's say that's a league event, right, and you're going to come the next night, right? You don't have to wait till you get here to pay. You can go into the system, click on the little pay now, right, and that's going to take you into PayPal, right, and you can pay for it at that time if you didn't pay when you registered for it. So. There is, of course, the menu item here from my teams. You can go and take a look at your teams. If you're not in any league attached to any team, you're not going to show it like this, but if you are, right, it's going to show you the details, right, about your team. This is especially useful early on when you put yourself in as an individual willing to join the team. Now when that's set, right, you can go and take a look and say, okay, whose team am I on and who are my fellow teammates on here. And everything that you are, every league and team that you're involved with. This is something we have not yet made use of, so I want to mention here, right, if we want to start keeping track of our volunteer information, so this is completely voluntary to keep track of your volunteer information.
If your company
right now.
does volunteer hours matching, like I know Intel does, that gets funds for the clubs. We're a 501c3, so this is one way you can vet it and have a board member sign off on it. So if you require a little bit more honesty, like legitimate tracking of your hours, just use this and contact a board member.
Just any board member then for
Usually, it depends on your company, but usually board members we're technically all members of board directors, right? So most companies will accept a signature from one of us and we can pull it up for you. So, just wanted to throw that out there.
And we did end up with, I think about $2,000 this last year or so from matching funds, so why not take advantage, you know? Yeah.
And even for the board, when they get like that, like, you know, how many volunteer hours are we actually relying on here? If people begin to start put in and say, oh, here's the actual volunteer. Now we have an idea, say, oh, wow, right? Because right today, we can't stand up and say, hey, each month there are X number of volunteer hours expended here at the club. We can make a guess, but it's not even an educated guess. So if you have the time, every once in a while, yeah, I mean, you could just do it once a month, go in and update that information. Again, anyone here that you can go into just the league info here, team schedules and standings, right? We will show you all of the current leagues, right? The schedule for those, even if you're not on it. You do have to be a member to be able to see this, right? You have to be registered as a member, right? Not just registered into the system. And now you can go in and see that information, right, on anything. And here's where you would go find a sub, right? The sub list. You pick the league you're playing in. You're looking for a sub, right? And you click on it. It's going to show you the list of people said, yeah, I can sub for that night for that league, whatever. And you see, you go telephone numbers there. Doesn't show the email address. It shows the telephone numbers. If you want to email them, you just check by their name and say email all selected. And the email is sent out by the system coming from your email address, which you have on your profile, right? So they get an email from you, right, on that. And so when they reply not to the system, but reply to you, right, on that. And so you check off the number to say you want to send, and then you put your subject in text. Hey, urgently need a spare, right, to play second position on Tuesday night with Wayne, and just bang, you're done. You don't have to go look up people's email addresses. It's already there in the system.
As long as people said that they wanted to
Play.
Right, yes, yeah, as long as they list themselves, say, hey, I'm interested in subbing, right, on that night, which, again, encouragement for people
So maybe
to
that's what
keep that updated.
we should add that to the, hey, leagues are open, sign up for leagues, but also remember to go into the member website and say if you're available for something.
But that's only after the league has been established.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Not during registration.
Yeah.
Registration is separate. We develop the league information from the registration.
So with the league opening email.
Yeah.
Then.
Once the league's open, then you can keep it.
So, Lindsay, does it apply to the social leagues that go over every 6 weeks?
Yes.
Pardon?
With social leagues on Friday, Saturday night?
Yeah.
Saturday night, if you do your sub on first go, how often you gotta go back and do that every time before?
Every time a new league is started, because that's a separate thing. You know, if we have a 6-week Friday night league, and then we have another one, that's a completely different league, and you have to go, it just doesn't carry it forward, yeah.
So I'm
Consider them separate.
we're gonna start asking Jane to send that out like an email or in the newsletter every time that happens, because I didn't realize that was happening until just like a couple of weeks ago.
You have to re-up every single time.
Every new league, yes, that's
You have to
right.
re-up. Just because you put your name on for one in February doesn't mean you're still live as a sub in June.
Yeah.
Because it's changed.
Yeah, exactly. And that's appropriate because we have a number of people who leave here end of March, right, type of thing, who would be available January through March, but are not available after that, right? And a new league starts up, and we wouldn't want them just to automatically be carried forward. Also, by the way, you can look up, if you're a member, you can look up any other member if you have just part of the name. You know, for example, here I said, oh, I'm looking for Tom, but I forgot his last name, right? And so I said, Tom. There he is.
There aren't any Toms I want to search for.
Yeah.
Careful, we still need him for a little bit of building shit.
And again, what they will do, they're just looking up members or something like that, say, oh yeah, I want to send Tom Dukerich an email. I don't know his email address. I know it's Tom, and I don't even know how to spell his last name. Everybody calls him Dude, so I'm not even sure what that means. Right? So anyway, so I just go search. Oh, there he is, and I can check by his name, or I can call him directly, right, with the number he's left. But I can check by his name and say, hey, I want to email, right? And that's going to pop up like it did, you know, for asking for people to sub, and I can send out the email. And again, the email is coming not from the system, but coming from you.
Make sure you put your Tinder picture.
So, any other questions? And I can do some live demo work with you if you want to.
So I'm gonna take this opportunity to speak up about this. Every year, this club pays dues to not only USA Curling but MOPAC, and for that we need a list of all the members. And right now, this is where I get that members list from. So all those people who joined in, they're like, I'm not getting my USA Curling or Curling News or whatever, right? How do I get on that? I know I'm a member and so forth. This is where I get that from. So if you don't have your address, if you don't have your phone number updated, if I don't have you existing in this profile, A, I'm not paying dues for you. You're not technically a member of the club at that point, or USA Curling or MOPAC, and B, I can't send that newsletter to you that way. So please update your information. I've done name changes for those who have gotten married, but
And
yes.
USWCA, same thing.
Same thing, we use the same.
All the women, we need to have everybody who is a member put their profile in here.
So this is our members list. So if you think, oh, I'm good enough, I know I can sign up for leagues, you're not really going to get captured there, and your information is not going to get continuously updated. So please just stay on top of that for the ease of everybody in the curling world. And I won't share it unless I'm bribed heavily with beer. So there you go. So just please update it.
All right, thank you, Lindsay. Ken, you
Can,
guys
can Lindsay set it up so that we can buy Chase the Ace tickets via the website?
Or I.
Great idea. What is it?
Don't tell this guy.
It's a cash only deal.
I know, yeah.
Who carries cash?
Well, the biggest hurdle to that is the cash payout. If we take in $200 in donations and we have $20 paid in cash, then we have to come up with $80 to pay out to an individual in cash, whether it's from the till or somewhere else.
The only problem is not the online gambling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was saying, otherwise we use the
People going
iPad.
online gambling.
Oh, we're 501c, right? You know.
All right, thank you, Lindsay. Just briefly, you know, a lot of our,
I'm sorry, I do have one other question. I don't know if this is the time or the place for this, but has there ever been a discussion about doing a member directory that not only includes like our contact information, but maybe, you know, what all of us does as an occupation, you know, like if I need a handyman, you know, I call Jason or whatever. You know, I just think there's some value.
We've talked a little bit about it. I think it's something the membership committee's.
Yeah, it's for sure. We've
thought
talked about it
it.
in the past, but we just haven't gotten any garnered interest from people for filling that out.
But if that was an interest, the system is extensible. We can add fields to the members, so we could say, we could have something like that, occupation or skills list, or something like that, call me about, right,
Yeah, if you
doing
need a
that.
rocket
And
scientist.
have that and expose
Got
that,
you,
so when you
fam.
search for people,
Got you.
you can actually see that
I
information.
like it because I
Right, so.
Good.
And I send emails to all of them, so I like spam.
You know, just briefly, I just wanted to touch on a little, you know, we talked about some of our financial successes and, you know, we're improving the place and all that stuff. Obviously, the main thing we do here is throw rocks and actually curl. I think the good news is that we seem to be doing that fairly well. You know, we had, I'll start briefly, the President's Cup, we were able to beat Denver in their place, so we were the first row team. 5 and under, we had, you know, I think at least Team Gaddy Ellison and champion Team Howard. We had teams participating at mixed and mixed doubles as well in the MOPAC region. I think obviously our big successes this year came also in the men's and women's. So four teams, I mean, all the women's qualifiers, all the men's qualifiers from MOPAC came from our club. We obviously had a good showing from Team Aubrey as a fairly new team in women's. We had a medal showing from the other ladies team, Team Burton. Team LeClaire, 4th place for the men's, and Team Siggins won the whole club match. So, you know, we're making a little name for ourselves, and I think, you know, I've got a feeling people don't really look forward to playing us anymore, so that's kind of a good thing. That wasn't always the case, I have as well, but at least it's getting better. cheer your team as well. So yeah, we have a lot of different teams going all over the place here. So let's keep doing it, right? Any open discussion? Any items anybody wants to bring up that they think ideas, things would be helpful? I think probably one key point is, we're always looking for new committee members. So if there's anything that you think you might be interested in, areas that you're concerned with, all the committees are always looking for helpers for sure. If anybody's ever interested in presenting at the board, please let myself or Carl Thompson know. We'll get you on the agenda. That meeting is always almost always the second Monday of the month here at the club, 5:30ish. It's open to any member who wants to be there, of course. And if you have a certain issue there, we'd be glad to review it. Otherwise, lecture results. Wayne. Oh, I'm sorry. Please, Karen.
Next week we have 36 campers coming. About 5 volunteers. So if anybody has crock pots that I can borrow, that'd be great. Right now, I think we've got maybe 2 or 3. I can get 2 or 3 more. And if anybody wants to donate some sweets or cash transfers or something, just let me know. Anything would be helpful.
What is it?
The kids get here Thursday, so we'll have Thursday dinner, Friday, Saturday, Sunday will be heavy lunch and snacks. So we're doing a little different this year, but we also have 3 times.
Yeah, last year was only 13 kids, this year's 36.
Awesome. So it's healthy, right? Yeah, so let me know.
Wayne, election results. This will be shocking, so I know you're all in the AFC.
Coins in, and our 3 incumbents are back in the board again. So Daryl, congratulations.
Unfortunately, my 3 individual write-in votes for Dukrich didn't apparently help.
There were numerous writing candidates. To be fair.
All right, let's have another great year next year. I think, club runs because everybody here, pitches in, does what they can, plays, volunteers, helps with events, does learn the girls, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I can't thank you enough. And, it's going really well. Keep up the good work. Thanks, everybody.